I would like to acknowledge that this video is being filmed on the traditional lands of the Wurrundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people who may be watching this video today. Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. So this is my reading week from the 2nd until the 9th of September. I read a total of, oh hang on, no that's not right. I read a total of 12 things, although I'm only going to be talking about 6 in detail in this video because 6 of the other books are going into a reading vlog that's coming out later this week, so stay tuned for that. I read a total of 3,729 pages and my yearly reading total is 425 books. Before I start talking about the books though, I want to say welcome and thanks to May from This Past Romance. She is my newest channel member, so thank you very much. I meant to do that shout out last week and I totally forgot, so my sincerest apologies. Welcome. And yeah, now we're going to talk about books. The 6 books that are featuring in the reading vlog are the books in the Peculiar Tastes series. This was the Kickstarter event that was set up by the Bonkers Romance podcast. It features 6 paranormal romance monster stories set in the shadow market as its main setting. So while I'm not going to talk about them in too much detail, the 6 books include The Death God Sacrifice by Jenny Nordbak, The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert, The Hellmouth Guardian's Lover by Adriana Herrera, The Vixen's Deceit by Nikki Sloan, The Captive Merman's Promise by Zoe Castile, and The Fae Queen's Promise by Sierra Simone. I had a really good time reading them, so I'm looking forward to getting that reading vlog up for you guys. I also listened to the Audible original Seatmate by Cara Bastone. I mentioned to a few people that I have started doing a diamond painting again, which I haven't done since the first lockdown here in Melbourne. I find that when I'm doing diamond paintings, that is the perfect time for me to listen to audiobooks because even though I struggle with audiobooks, that is one way that I can concentrate on the story while still doing something. So Seatmate is the 3rd book in the Love Lines series. This is about Gwen and Sam who meet while sitting together on a bus. They're traveling from Boston to New York and they strike up a conversation. Even though normally they wouldn't necessarily strike up a conversation with a stranger, they just get to start talking and they have really easy conversation. There's a few things along the way like the bus breaking down and Gwen needing to get to a job interview and all of that sort of thing that's woven into the story, and it was just great. I really enjoyed it. It's short, it's fun, it's entertaining. Highly recommend this entire series. I also read a collection of short stories in the Necessary Evil series by Only James. This I got because I had pre-ordered Lunatic, so it was like a pre-order gift. It was just a collection of really short check-ins with the majority of the couples in here. There was a Thomas and Aidan short story, which I think sort of gives some context to everything that's happened because we've sort of seen and heard all of the other information around their relationship through the eyes of other people, whereas this was specifically from Thomas's point of view, and I'm very excited for Maniac after reading this book. As with all Only James books, I would highly recommend that you check out the content warnings before you pick this one up though. Then I read The Kite by N.R. Walker. So this is another romantic suspense story. It is romance. You have an Australian ex-covert ops soldier called Harry who works for the government sort of as a government hired hitman. He does all the dirty work and basically no one acknowledges his presence. However, at the start of the book, his own employer puts out a hit on him, and the only way for him to survive the next couple of days is to kind of team up with Asher Garren, who is a mercenary for hire who has no country that he hails from. He and Harry have kind of been enemies for years. They've floated around the same circles and they've never really had to deal with each other on a personal level until they're thrown together, and Asher is determined to help Harry survive the next few days. It was a really interesting read. It definitely kept my interest and kept me compelled. I will say that it felt like in the second half of the book there was a little bit of a shift in personalities, a little bit, but overall I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying N.R. Walker's writing style, so I will continue to pick up their books. After that, I reread Ruby Fever because we had the live show over the weekend, so I will leave a link to that on the screen. I'm actually filming this video after that, so if I seem like I'm talking myself in circles, it's because I've spent all morning talking about this book. It is the 6th book in the Hidden Legacy series. It is the wrap-up and conclusion to Catalina and Alessandro's book, and honestly, I just love this one. As I said in the live show, I think Catalina's trilogy is my favourite of the 2 trilogies so far, just because I relate to Catalina more. And the thing that Ilona Andrews do really well is they have this combination of elements that just work flawlessly together that you don't find in many other authors' repertoires. And that's not to say that other people don't do them well, but they don't do this particular combination really well. These guys have amazing world building. They have characters that you connect with straight away. They make you fall in love with all of the side characters, and they write action sequences beautifully. Like you are compelled to keep reading. And they do that flawlessly the whole way through the Kate Daniels and the Hidden Legacy series. And as I said, it's not that other people don't do that. It's just that they might be heavier on 2 or 3 of those elements and may miss the mark on the 4th one. Whereas I've not read a book by Ilona Andrews that I have not 100% adored from start to finish. And I'm so sad that we may not get another Hidden Legacies book for whoever knows how long. And I just want more. Like I want stories for all of the side characters in this book and in the previous books. Like I'm just well and truly invested. The one thing that we did make a point of noting is that the relationship development between Catalina and Alessandro in here is not the main focus of the book. There is a lot of wrapping up and big reveals and things that happen in this particular story that tie up what's been happening in the world really nicely. There is still room for more books, but you have a sense of resolution at the end of this one. So if you're going into it for the romance, what you get is an established relationship where both partners are secure in the relationship. And even though things don't always go well in their relationship, that's not the conflict of the story. The conflict of the story is the overarching world plot. So I adore that kind of storytelling style. And this book honestly just makes me so happy. I would happily dive in and reread it for the 3rd time this weekend. Like that's where I am with this book. So that's my endorsement. All right, then I read Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. This is one of the physical books on my TBR that my members got to vote on for which one I was going to read each week. This is the 4th and final book in Anna Huang's Twisted series, and I adored the concept of this book, but it is about 150 pages too long for me, and I'm just going to put that out there at the start because this was a book that I honestly could have put down and walked away from, and I don't say that about books very often. I kept reading because I do enjoy the series. And this one was a morality chain story. You have Christian, who is a billionaire CEO. He is very gruff. He is very much willing to do whatever it takes. And he might look like a gentleman on the outside, but he is a killer. And he falls for Stella, who is a young woman who lives in his building. She thinks of him as the building owner. She knows that he is wealthy. She knows that he is standoffish and that people are very cautious around him. They have mutual acquaintances in common, but they've never really interacted specifically with each other. And when she needs a fake boyfriend for a work thing, they end up striking up an agreement in which he will help pose for photos as her fake boyfriend and she will attend business dinners with him. Then he finds out that she has a long-term stalker, and this sends his overprotective drive into gear because he is obsessed with Stella. And he himself has some of these stalking tendencies as well. So just be aware of that going into it. I'll talk about the content warnings in a minute. He's determined to keep her safe. And that's sort of where their relationship starts to develop. But like I said, you could have cut out 150 pages in here, and I think this book would have been a much tighter book, much more compelling, and I wouldn't have been able to put it down. But I just got to points where I'm like, can we move on to the next part of the story? Like I knew where this was going and I wanted to get there, but I had to slog through pages of stuff that just, I don't know, maybe they thought they were building character, but I don't think they actually developed them as deeply enough for the length of the book, which is really disappointing. And I know I am probably the unpopular opinion in this that it's too long and that I don't think the characters were developed as much, because I was very intrigued by both of them and I just don't feel like I got what I was hoping for out of this book. So content warnings in here. Well, content and tropes. This is a morality chain. It does feature anxiety representation. There is an emotionally abusive relationship between parents and child. There is also death of parents. The death of parents is off page though, but it is mentioned and brought up. There is stalking, there is the stalker, there is kidnapping, and Christian is also very, very, very proficient at cyber stalking and also taking down his opponents in a very brutal way online. So be aware of all of that going into it. And possibly my favorite read after my Ruby Fever reread was Seraph by Mayne, which is the newest book in their Monstrous series. This is MM dystopian monster romances. I used to say paranormal, but it is very much dystopian because basically the middle of the US is a wasteland. Monsters have come through and forced people to live on the outskirts. And most of these stories take place in the inner part of the US, where groups of humans who have been nicknamed raiders try and live and survive in places where the monsters roam freely. So this one follows on from previous books. The monster from the title, Seraph, is a monster that we had met in previous books, and he is a character who has been horrifically treated and tortured, and as we later find out, scientifically experimented on. And at the start of this book, they still have him caged. They've freed him from who was holding him, but they've had to keep him caged because he can't calm himself down. He's constantly screaming and he's constantly in pain. And one of the raiders who is guarding Seraph is Lilac, and Lilac is the go-to killer and assassin for this outpost of raiders, and he knows that at some point he's probably going to have to put this monster out of its misery, and he doesn't quite know how he feels about it because the longer he spends with Seraph, the more compassion he feels towards this creature who is just in so much pain. And this particular story in the series really hit hard because it does deal with the fact that this character has to be kept in a cage because he has no control over himself yet. Their relationship develops while he is still in the cage. And there is a content warning because there is a scene of violence between the two of them right at the start. It's not once they're in the established relationship, but right at the start, so be aware of that because it is quite violent. But I really like this because it brought all of the characters from previous books together. All the monsters and all the partners that we have met so far in the series end up in the one space. They're all determined to try and help Seraph, but they don't even know what he is because he's not a natural born monster from the monster realm. He is something that has been created here on Earth, and the horror of that is probably what got to me the most because humans can be horrible people. That's all I'm going to say. But at the end of the day, I loved how wholesome this was because even though you have this big scary monster who looks totally alien, even compared to some of the other monsters that we've met in the series, Seraph is in a completely different ballpark, and Lilac is this loner assassin who doesn't really form connections with other people. Their relationship is the sweetest thing once it develops, and I adored it. I really love this book. It's over 400 pages long. I couldn't put it down. I read it the day it came out and I was not going to bed until I was done. So aside from the content warning around the violence between the two of them, there is military scientific experimentation that is talked about in detail in here, including essentially what's tantamount to torture, violence, gore, death. There are some homophobic and racist comments in here from particular characters in relation to what's going on in the book. Those characters are not seen in a positive light at all, and the other characters actively call out the fact that those comments are being made, which was great. So I probably missed something, but I really enjoyed this book. It was great. I thought it was the last book in the series, but there is a novella and at least one other full-length novel coming out in 2023, so I'm very excited to see where this story goes. All right, so those are the books that I've read in the last week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have read any of them or if you're planning on picking any of them up. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, leave some kind of red emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.